Okay, I just want to go over some things here. Uh, I asked, here's the question. In 1985, I asked AI, in 1865, how many Europeans in America can mean different things. So here's the breakdown. People of European ancestry living in the US. Okay? Now you got to remember, they program this thing uh to always promote white supremacy. But the information is information. Information and history is history. So we have to dodge the hijack and read between the lines, okay? By 1865, the vast majority of Americans were European descendants. The vast majority of Americans were European descendants. Now, what does that mean? 1865, the vast majority of Americans were European. That means the same thing it means today. Only Europeans were considered Americans, right? So that's what they're saying. Because why? Here's something important you need to know. When they say America or the U.S., they mean the U.S. corporation, the the colonizers, white supremacy. That's what they mean. They don't mean the copper tone people who were here in this land and when they got here. And they still don't mean that when they say America, based on the conclusion of the Dred Scott case. And it's written in all their bylaws. Negroes cannot be U.S. citizens if you're not an Edomite. You're of another nation. If you're not a part of their corporation, if you're not a part of that U.S. corporation, then you're not a part of that U.S. corporation. If you're not an Edomite, you're not a part of the U.S. corporation. We know they steal identity, right? They are not Europeans. Edomites are not Europeans. The first Europeans were the Japhites. There's three sons. Remember, there's three sons: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Japheth took the northern part up above Africa, Europe. Shem took the west. They took the west part of the hemisphere of Africa. And Ham took the north and southeast. Shem took the north and southwest, and all of the Americas, the U.S., all that is ours, because that's where the Most High sent us to, the northern kingdom, the 10 tribes. Where did he send us to? He sent us to North America, where no man had ever dwelled before. I know a lot of people say, well, that was Egypt. No. Why? Because look how old those look how old those statues and stuff is. Those look at the pyramids. Listen, the pyramids in Egypt, we built them. And it didn't take but 500 years, maybe less than that. We were enslaved over there, and we built those pyramids. And they kept them clean and polished. The pyramids over here, they had been there before the white people came here. They had been there almost 2,000 years. And they were not kept clean and polished. The last 500 to 1,000 years, since they've been coming over here, You had earthquakes. Look at how the earthquakes rearrange things. You've had floods. Look how the floods throw dirt and rearrange things. So you can't just look and say, look at the conditions of the artifacts here. This must be old Egypt. No, they came from Egypt. They did the architect from Egypt. The 10 tribes, they were in Egypt together. They did the work. It was their architecture. It was their designs. Moses did. Moses did that work. And the Israelites, they did the labor. Moses did the designing, and the Israelites did the labor. And the Most High gave Joseph the knowledge of how all the elements work. So that knowledge came from us. So, okay, let's just get back to this. I just want to tell y'all, try to set the foundation that we were here in this land. 10 tribes was in North America. When they first came, you got to remember that. You got to believe that. If you can't prove to me that the 10 tribes scattered all out over the Caribbeans and South America and Central America before the Edomites got here, if you can't prove to me how that happened and show me in history, then because everything I have read proved that the Northern Kingdom stayed together when they came in North America. They didn't have to go down on the islands to separate from each other in case they were fighting or, tribal disagreement. They could just move farther because it came to the East Coast, right? They could move farther west, north, east, north or south. They could scatter out and still be so far away from each other that if somebody came and captured one tribe, their brothers or their cousins that was pushed farther in distance away would not even know. Just like if you got a tribe in Anderson, we in Indianapolis, you got a tribe in Anderson, Indiana. Or if you got a tribe on the east side, and we in Avon, and you got a tribe on the east side, they could remove the whole tribe before the people on the east side would even know that their cousins are in trouble. That's how big this land is. So don't be simple. We're looking here to show you my point, to prove to you that the Edomites did not outnumber the copper tone people when they got here. I'm going to show you how they moved. We're going to show you, looking at this right here, this census, we're going to show you how they were moving. By 1865, the vast majority of Americans were of European descent. The vast majority. That's a lie. I told you. That means if we had, just let me give you another point. If the Northern Kingdom had been here 3,000 years before they got here, we must not have been having any children at all if they outnumbered us in 1865. What happened to all those people? I'm going to show you in this next clip I got from AI. 300, because right here it says the European descendants. Let's keep reading. The 1870 census, the closest full count recorded 3,244,406. 3 million, there was only 3 million people. And how long have they been here? They've been here about 400 years, right? And they outnumbered us. Let's see. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Let's say 400 years. Not quite 400 years. They have been here. And they only generated, if they were just generated, they were just generating. We're talking about they were born. They said recorded 300, okay, we read the number there, 320, 244, 406. Native born. And another million, say 4,138,353 foreign born people in New York State alone. Okay, that was New York State alone. And guess what? Guess what? They were here 300 years before they set up government. They didn't get their first president. They didn't overthrow the cherry tree, the Moors, our government, the Jewish government, Jew and the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom had set up government. We ruled these lands for 300 years after they got here, before they could totally conquer with their armies and their Gatling gun and their troops before. And they did a lot of that through this census. They say they conquered, same way Trump is doing now. He's saying, yeah, he tell lies. They declare victories when there's really not a victory, and then they write it down on paper. They put it on, make a map, and say, this is our territory. This is what we conquered, and this is all of our land here. We got troops here. We got troops there. Their army's been destroyed. No more people. We destroyed their whole generation. So yeah, that's what they did here. On paper, they make themselves bigger than what they are, and more accomplished than what they have really accomplished. Okay, so this was supposed to be New York alone. So saying it like that suggests that they had conquered all of America, and they had people in other places in America. They did not. They did not. They were moving. I said, let's see, in 1776 or 1776, 1779, George Washington, they had only pushed into the interiors of America as far as Ohio and Indiana. And then you go down south, they have Florida, a little bit of Georgia. They went around under Louisiana. They stayed on the border, right? Someplace where they could get away real quick in them ships. They stayed on the border. They did not venture into the interior of America, of Azereth, North America, they call it. But why? Because there were still native people, Coppertone people, conquering those lands. We had been here 3,000 years. They say they had these many people. They say they had, they beef their numbers up. They say they had these many people in 400 years. That's how many people that was born here in 400 years. So that's probably a lie, because they brought people here too, right? There's no way they generated. Let's see. There's no way. Yeah, let's say 500 years. That's not a high birth rate. 3 million people in 500 years. Because every 20 years you're supposed to get 2 million people. We generate now. If you do the FBI census down on how black people generate, every 20 years we generate 2 million people. Right? Every 20 years, right now, as 14% of the population, we generate 2 million people. So they weren't generating that fast, as we can see, because they had been here 400 years by their own record, and they only had generated 3 million people. And they said some of the people came from other nations, other white nations. I'm going to show you that. The so-called, I'm going to show you, they call all their allies, Chinese, Japanese, all those people, Russians and all the Germans and all of them, they call them Europeans, meaning that they are Edomites, white, so-called white people. They have the same loss of melanin, the same genetics. They are the same people. Okay, so let's continue here. Okay, we have the 1,138,000 foreign-born people in New York alone, state. And about 1860, U.S. Census counted 31 million. Now, let's see, 31 million people total. Now, let's see, 1860, 31 million people total. Now, we're looking at 1870, New York. Now, that New York was probably the biggest city that they conquered at the time. Now, this 1860 census, why didn't they just 31 million? 1860. Let's give them that. Let's give them that, because say they had 1860. They had to have somewhat that close to that number in order to conquer America. The northern tribes, they had to become close to that. Let's say give them 31 million people. 1860. Then let's give them that. And that's including the people that they brought in. They flooded into the country. They were bringing more of their people here than they were bringing African slaves. Right? They didn't need a lot of African slaves. 31 million people. I'm going to show you where they claim that when slavery was considered ended, they freed 4 million African slaves brought here from Africa. They freed 4 million, right? They only freed 4 million. There was only 4 million slaves here from Africa in 1865. Okay? Let's see. The census counted 31 million. 1865. I believe that because you had the British, the French, the Germans, the English. They all were flooding over here. They had opened up the floodgates, and they were all coming over here, setting up their empire. They were fighting over land at the same time, white on white, fighting over who's gonna rule in what area, and and they had to help defend the land that they already had established, taken from the Northern Kingdom. Okay. 31 million people total, subtracting enslaved people, Native Americans, and a small number of other roughly 27 to 28 Americans in 1865 were of the ancestry. So if you mean how many white European descendants Americans, it was around 27 million in 1865. So they had to subtract the slaves, 27, 28 million, other roughly people, 27 million, 27, 28 million from 31. So they're gonna say the 4 million. They know the 4 million blacks that was brought here from Africa, Jews, were released. They counted. They said only 4 million. We only released 4 million. Maybe not that many. You got to remember, when they do the math, they're trying to make themselves look good. So it was around 27 million. Let's keep going. European-born immigrants living in the U.S. If you mean actual immigrants from Europe who were living in America in 1865, between 1840 and 1860, about 4 million. See there? We just figured it out. About 4 million. Europeans arrived in the U.S., mostly from Germany, Ireland, Scandinavian. See, they were coming from everywhere. 1870 census showed 1.1 million foreign born just in New York, with about 500,000 from Ireland, 300,000 from Germany, 110,000 from England. Nationwide, in the 1860, about 4 million people from foreign born and overwhelmingly majority from Europe. By the 1865, numbers would be smaller. Numbers would be similar, maybe 4 to 4.5 million, since the Civil War immigrants slowed but did not stop. Okay, so here's what I'm trying to tell you. In each city right now, major city, you got about you got about 2 million people. They didn't cover a lot of ground. You get what I'm saying? In each city right now, they stayed together. They had to, because they were fighting Indian wars. Don't forget about Indian wars. They made 4,000 treaties. It was not because they didn't have enough Indians to fight. It wasn't because they were beating the Indians, so they can't exclude the number of Northern Kingdom Coppertone people here if they made 4,000 treaties. They didn't make 4,000. They didn't make 4,000. They didn't make 1,000 treaties and keep breaking them 3,000 times. Every time they advanced into a land, farther into a territory, a location, they made treaties with the Indians that were there in that land. It was about 500 tribes here in the Americas that they give number to. It was about 500 Native Americans, Northern Kingdom Coppertone people here. We got books. I can show you in the books. We have records. We have the Smithsonian. We have the Library of Congress. We have all those records. We have those records. We have research and books and manuscripts from explorers and map makers. They saw the people here, and they knew what color they were, too. And they wrote it down, and we have the records. Go look at Kui Mayo. He puts out all the records. Although he's saying this was Egypt, he still had the records of the books of who the first Americans here, who the original Americans here in America on this land when the Europeans, Edomites, got here. So we see they saying they had 27 million. They were mainly closely gathered together on that East Coast. 10. Let's say in 2, 3, 4, 5. In 5 states. In five states, you get 10 million. So in 10 states, or in 10 cities, let's say 10 cities, right? Because they were close together, all down Manhattan, North Carolina, New York, Ohio, Georgia, Florida, up under near Mississippi, around 1865. So 27 million would just be those coastal cities, small cities. I mean, territory, 2 million people. I'm right here in the county of Marion County. It's 2 million people here in this one county. And that's just, we're in the center of Indiana. You have cities all around us with hundreds of thousands of people. Let me wait just a second. Hey Siri. What's the total population of Indiana?
As of 2020, the population of Indiana was 6,785,528.
So if you got that, it was 6 million people in Indiana. Indiana is the capital city. It's not a large state. So when you go in, it's easy. It would be easy peasy. The 27 million did not cover the United States. It sounds like a big number. But let's say New York is New York, uh, Pennsylvania, Baltimore, Ohio, North Carolina, uh, South Carolina, Florida, 25. Let's say in 5 states, in 5 cities, in 5 states, or in 5 cities, in 6 cities, 7 cities, in 4 states. That's the territory they had. You know, Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, North Carolina, South Carolina. Let's just give them that. Virginia. Let's give them those colony states. They had 13. They had 13. And say they had 2 million apiece. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They had 2 million apiece in each state. That's still not a lot. That's not a lot of territory. We still have this whole continent in the Northern America full of people. Can you see the magnitude of this? You have 6 states is where the Edomites presided. You have the rest of the 44 states, 48 states, full of Indians. And they're going to tell you, let's keep reading here. You say the 4 million after the Civil War, because, the immigration slowed down. That means they wasn't bringing a lot of more people in here. How many came in 1865, 1914? The context from the end of the Civil War, 1865, World War III, World War II, well, that's World War I. 1914, about 25 million European immigrants to the United States, but after 1865, not the number already here. It was not the number already here. Let me read that again. From the end of the Civil War, 1865, World War I, in 1914, about 25 million Europeans. How many came? Okay, that's the subject. How many came? They said about, we get down here, it says 25 million European immigrants. But after 1865, not the number already here. Wasn't the number here. So the answer directly, 25. The answer directly, European ancestry, 27 million people in the U.S. in 1865. Slavery, 27 million. They were scattered over 13 states, colonies, 13 colonies, right? Scattered on the East Coast only, and a little bit down south, and under Mississippi and Louisiana, going up that way. European-born immigrants, 4 to 5 million 4 to 4.5 million living in the U.S. in 1865. Now, first they said that was New York only, right? We saw where they said, let me see what they said about New York. Yeah, they said 3 point in New York alone, right? Now he get down here and he's saying 1865, 4 to 4.5 million. If you were asking about people, European descendants or just immigrants, you know what I asked? They're the same. It's the same, right? It was the same. Okay, here's my second question. There isn't an official number. Let's see. Is that what? Is that my second question? An official number because okay. I asked about the reclassification of the Indians. There isn't an official total number because the reclassification happened inconsistently across the states where they were colonized, that they had colonized, right? The inconsistency happened across the states where that they had colonized, right? They wasn't going in the savage territory taking census on the Indians. They were not in those savage territories. What they call savage. That means untamed. They only have 5 civilized tribes, so you got to consider that too. So there was 500 tribes here. They only encountered and did business with 5 civilized tribes. The tribes they kept around, kept close to help them infiltrate the other black people that was here in America. Inconsistency across state census years and local officials. Census years and local officials, but historians and records show it was systematic and widespread, especially from the mid 80s through the 1940s. Here's what we know. It was systematic and widespread. Widespread across the colonies, the 13 colonies. You know what they were. Now you got all 48 states that they had not ventured in, they had not carried that railroad through. They had treaties. They had treaties with the people that was near their colonies to stop the fighting. So let's ceasefire. Same thing Donald Trump is doing now. They say ceasefire, they shake your hand, and then they sucker punch you and start the war all over again. The Indian Wars. So here's how it happened. How it happened. Census practices 1850 to 1940. Census enumerators were given discretion to decide the races. If a person had any African ancestry or blood or looked black, they often were marked Negro, mulatto, or colored. The Negro, mulatto, or colored. Now, mulatto or colored. Negro, black. Mulatto means you were a tear, or you could be an Israelite. Mulatto means you could be the white man's baby with a black woman, or you could be a black man's baby with a white woman. Because you said, well, black men couldn't have babies. Yes, they could. They had babies when the indentured servitude was happening. Before they conquered them 300 years, black men were mingling themselves. Israel has mingled themselves with the heathens. A lot of that happened then. Okay? A lot of that happened then. And then they start changing the misogynist laws. Okay? Negro, mulatto, you could be, okay? And color was, you were light skinned, you wasn't jet black. You wasn't dark brown. You didn't have a lot of melanin. Mulatto, you didn't have a lot of melanin. Colored mean you had more melanin than the mulattoes, right? Uh, Instead of Indians, right? They didn't. Now, this could be the northern and southern kingdom who were different shades of brown, copper tone, but the lighter you were, they put mulatto on you or colored instead of Indians. They knew who you were. The Negro were the darkest people. Now, a lot of the Indians were considered Negro. You see what I mean? They reclassified the Indians as Negroes. So they were darker than the mixed people. The Indians here, the copper tone Indians, had more melanin than the mulattoes or the colored people. That's the same way it is today, right? So, but they didn't let them be called, they didn't call them Indians. The Negroes were not called Indians. And depending on how light skinned you were called colored or mulatto. Very fair, almost white, stuff like that. They were given their own discretion. Okay. Even if their families identified as natives, meaning we are the Indians here, U.S. Census Bureau instructions, U.S. Census Bureau instructions changed over time, and the term like mulattoes were later removed, pushing people into just Negro or white. You see what I mean? See what I mean? They removed and pushed them into Negro or white. So they had to, they had to reclassify the Indians to be Negroes. Let's see. Number 2, the one drop rule and racial integrity act, Virginia 1424 Racial Integrity Act, forced people to register as either white or colored. That was okay. This was in Virginia, white or colored. Dr. Walter Plecker, Virginia's register, used it to erase thousands of natives and black Indians' identity on paper, reclassifying them as colored. They were erasing the natives and the black Indians. Right here. We got it right here for you. Black Indians. Meaning not the 4 million Africans that they brought over here in 1865. They were freed. That's two separate people right here. Right? This is 1924. 1924. Natives, copper tone people, the people that was here first. Not those people who $5 Indians who say they are the natives, right? Black Indians. Identities on paper. Reclassifying them as color. When have you ever seen those people who they call the Native American peoples classified as colors? No. Similar policies existed in other states. Everywhere. This is the hijack right here. They're still in the land. And you Israelite camps are helping them steal my people's land. I know who my father is. I know his family. We're from Louisiana, where they considered the Choctaw Indians to be from. That was not our people. We were there before they were. They were part of the white, so-called bastard children. of Esau. Okay, so you have the Dawes Roll and land rights. Remember, Dane Calloway talks about this Dawes Roll. It's real. Library of Congress, look it up. To deny native land claims, the Dawes Roll and land rights to deny land claim, natives' land claim. Over 200,000 native people are living around on reservations who had treaties with the Edomites around the 13 colonies that they had made treaties with, peace treaties, laid their guns down. Well, you know, it was around where the colonizers were. That's just common sense. 250,000 families, not people, families, claim that they had over 2 million acres of land. 2 million acres or 20 million acres of land. That's how big their land, their reservation was, right? 20 million acres of land. It's got to be a lot of people to own 20 million acres of land. That's a lot of Negroes. That's a lot of black Indians. And that's just around the colonized areas where the colonies were, where they were establishing their colonies, where they had made treaties and forced the people on reservations. They had 20 million acres of reservation land that they knew was theirs before the colonizers got there, and under treaty. And they had already signed those lands to them under treaty. This is the Choctaws land. This is the Blackfoot. They had 20 million of those, and then they moved those people off those lands and took those lands and started the land grab. Okay, the Dawes Roll to deny the land claims. People with African ancestry were often put on freeman's roll. African ancestry. That means the people that they freed that they had on the slave roster. That was on the slave they had written down that slaves belonged to people. They had their names, birth certificates, and all of that. Instead of by blood roll. In other words, they didn't have the names of their tribes in Africa. They didn't have them by name of their blood families in Africa. So you can throw away that ship roster that said this was, look at their African name, look at their Israelite names on them rolls. This is how we know they brought Israelites over here. They had the Israelites' name. No, they didn't have them on the census that you looking at. They didn't have them by their blood, the house of their fathers. They didn't have that roll. They didn't show you that. They got rid of that. If they had it, they got rid of it. And I don't think when they captured those people from Africa, when they captured the Negroes from Africa, they didn't have no papers on them. They didn't come with papers and birth certificates. And who cared about what name they had? They beat the name off. They beat their original name out their mouth and gave them government names. That legally redefined them as non-Indians for tribal land possession. You see where I'm coming from? We've been here 43 minutes, man. It's a lot here to look at. Paper genocide. Scholars call this paper genocide or administrative erasure. Families could be Indians in 1870 and colored by 1880 on census records. You know who you were. You still know who you were. They changed the records. And then they tell you to refer back to your family tree by their records. Your story, your history passed on to you by your ancestors didn't count no more. Why did we go along with that? Because we lost our land, so we really didn't have nothing to look forward to by citing our ancestry bloodline. We went by what they said because they had gave us social security numbers and handout and crumbs from under the table, and we had to identify ourselves. Are you Negro, black, or color, or white? What are you? And they gave you a list to pull from. Well, I'm Negro this year. 10 years later, what you want me to say? I'm African American. I'm colored. Well, oh, to get the job, I had to say I'm colored. Whether I'm colored, the employer's not gonna hire you unless you answer that question. Why do they need you to give them your ancestry to answer that question? What's your nationality? Why do they need that? They looking right at you. Why do they give you a choice to pick from? Why can't you just write it down? Because they didn't teach you your true identity. They gave you an identity. Okay? They didn't teach you your true identity. They gave you an identity to pick from. And if you said you were white and you were Negro, you definitely wasn't getting the job. And you might be even brought up on charges for fraud. Wire fraud or some shit. Okay. Paper genocide ensured families could be Indians. Families could be Indians in 1870 and colored by 1880, 10 years later on the census record, even in the same household. Newspapers in the 1800s declared tribes extinct. See there? They are extinct because we have erased them on paper, okay? While descendants, this is genocide. This is what they're guilty of. This is what the Israelites should be teaching. That these people are guilty of genocide because they, on paper, they erased us and took our heritage. And took our land, we own all of this. They came over here and erased us on paper. We're still here. 1800 tribes were this 1800 the 1800s the newspapers declared the tribes extinct while descendants were still alive, just reclassified. How many people? No exact count exists because records were destroyed. Oh, wow. They destroyed the records, huh? Destroyed or altered. Reclassification varied by state, county, and individual census takers. They could write down, they wrote you right off, man. They got rid of us and stole our property on paper. They really didn't conquer all the lands. They stole the property on paper, and then they went around and collected the weak tribes and sent them down into South and Central and South and the Caribbean islands. They moved them off this land to build their empires down there. But they didn't move the 500 million people. They just shipped them in ghettos and reclassified them. They reclassified us and got us to agree to their jurisdiction over us, like we're doing now. I follow your laws. Your law to follow the law of the land. The Bible said we got to follow the law of the land. The law of the land is every man is free, and God gave us dominion over our own world. That's the law of the land and the Mosaic law. That's the law of the earth. Records were destroyed, reclassified, varied by state to state individual census takers. Many families didn't know it happened until genealogists compared records generations later. Right? They were still calling themselves Indians. They just didn't have their land. Grandma was an Indian. You know why they said grandma? Because they thought the bloodline was passed on through the matriarch, through the mother. So what they were saying when they said grandma was an Indian, that they were saying we are Indians too, because they thought their bloodline was passed on through the woman. If not, they would have been saying my grandfather was an Indian. That's what the Edomites didn't want you to say, because they know your bloodline is passed on through that Y chromosome. So yeah, historians describes it as affecting thousands to 10,000s of people, particularly Virginia. Here it is right here. Here it is right here. Here's where they made a decision on the whole world in these states right here, the colonies: Virginia, Carolina, Oklahoma, other southeastern states, large African indigenous populations, tribal nations had documents, thousands of people of African descent. Now, see, they just started calling you African descent. See how they switched that? First, it was Indians and Native people. Now, they wrote down African descents when there was only 4 million Africans that was released in slavery. And we know they wasn't all just Jews. They had some Israelites in there too. But they're not counting these states right here. These are the only states they're counting: Virginia, Carolina, Oklahoma, and the southern and the southeastern states with large African indigenous populations. Southeastern states, southeastern, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, on the border, Mexico. They had large Afro-indigenous populations because black people like heat. We can deal with the heat. And Afro-indigenous tribal nations had tribal nations had documented thousands of people of African descent as Afro-indigenous descent living among them in the 1800s. Tribal nations, okay. No, the light skin, they said tribal nations, they talking about the 5 civilized tribes. The white people they carved out and gave them the identity of the people whose land they were already living in. They made them governors and governments. They made them poster children, poster people of the indigenous people of this land. They made them the poster people for us to look at, just like they painted Iconoclasm. What's that word? Iconoclasm. Just like they painted Jesus white, and to declare that all of God's people had switched over and were white. That's the same thing they're doing here. They call them tribal nations. That's from Afro-indigenous population, tribal nations. Now, I thought we just read that the tribal nations, the Indians, were reclassified as Negroes. Now you done brought some people in here, you calling them the tribal nations. Those are different people. Those are the people, again, who set up to point to when you say these are not the Negroes' land. We brought the Negroes here, and these people we brought the Negroes here and all down south in the Caribbean, where there's 200 or 300 million Negroes down there, Afro whatever, saying that they the same slave ship people that came from Africa. They don't know they came. Their parents told them we came on slave ships. That's all they repeat. They repeat, we came on slave ships. That's what our parents say. Just like the Northern Kingdom got to North America, just like the Africans got to North America, we must come from Africa too. Because we came here on slave ships. Our parents told us. They didn't tell us we were Indians. And you know, we came from North America. They didn't tell them that. And we know they did. We know they were in North America. They didn't take the Indians they didn't take the Africans all the way down. They had to stop off in North America first. The French. We just read. Who were all those people? The French. It's up here somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Ireland. Yeah. Ireland, Germany, England. Ireland, Germany, England. Spain. Europeans. Those Europeans. They came from the northern hemisphere. So it was easier to drop them off in America, in North America, to the French or whoever, Ireland, the Germans, England, the Portuguese, and then have them take them from there down in the islands and sell them or, use them on their farms. So, yeah, all praises to the Most High. We're going to get out of here. This video is here. I might refer to it later when I do some more videos, when I'm getting into something else. But this is the reason they separated us and they told us they brought us from Africa. This is proof that they did not. They did not. Those people up under North America, they belong to the Northern Kingdom of North America. The 10 tribes, the Israelites, they are Israelites. So you can say the 10 tribe chart, the 12 tribe chart is wrong. Then you have to explain how all those people got down up under North America. But it also proves that the majority of the Northern Kingdom still in North America. And I don't think they're counting us right here in North America. We are 14% here. If we are 14% here, all the blacks are only 14%. Let's say 70 million. Then, if we are like the sands of the sea, there's a lot of us scattered still in Africa and all over the other 3 parts of the earth. We're scattered over there. There's a lot of us over there in every nation. So you got maybe 200 million of the Northern Kingdom down in South and Central and the Caribbeans. You got about 160 million. You got about 80 million here. You got so many million over there and scattered abroad over there. We're like the sands of the sea. And if you count our mulatto babies, we dropped during World War One, World War Two, Korean War, the Philippines, and us just moving in other places, dropping babies and leaving them. We don't know how they survived or anything like that, but we see some of them come back. They come to America and say, "I'm black. I'm black Oriental. Or I'm black Filipino." That don't have to be Moab. That could be one of Israelite babies. But we are here in North America. We need to stand together here. Or do we care about America? Do we really, really care if we get this land back? No, because the Most High is about to destroy it. The only reason I make these videos is so we can understand who we are and that the Most High did not abandon us. And when you realize the rights of indigenous people, human rights, the Constitution, the Peace and Friendship Treaty, you'll realize that the Most High gave us law to stand on. We don't have to consider Esau's law the law of the land. Why would we consider, why would we listen to and follow after thieves? Why would we follow after the thieves? Let's come back and gather and get out of this place, man. We're going to have to. It's going to happen. The Most High is pushing us to separate. And when we separate, we don't separate under the fear that the Most High is mad at us because we're not following Esau's law. That's the main thing I'm trying to get over through all these videos. When we separate and come back, we come back to the Most High's laws first. And the curses are going to fall off of us. We're going to be sealed, insulated from this curses that's going to hit these other nations and some of our people. And the Most High is not mad at us from separating from these people and considering our sovereignty and our nation and our allegiance to the nation and not to the nation of Edomites, because the Edomites' kingdom is over. All praise to the Most High.